private dining room door closed with a velvet whisper. Ju Heijin sat motionless at the head of the obsidian table, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. The candles flickered across his face. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that had witnessed too much blood, a mouth that hadn't smiled in years. Before him sat a single plate. Jeonbokjuk, abalone porridge, but not like any he'd ever seen. The porridge shimmered with gold-flecked sesame oil. Fresh abalone sliced paper-thin floated atop creamy rice cooked in dashi broth. Microgreens arranged like calligraphy. A single shiso leaf placed with surgical precision. He lifted the spoon. The first taste hit his palate like a memory he'd buried. His grandmother's kitchen. The smell of rice cooking over charcoal. The only warmth he'd known before the streets claimed him. His eyes closed involuntarily. When he opened them, the woman who'd prepared it stood in the corner. Adela Mirebasi. Tall, dark-skinned. Her natural hair wrapped in an elegant scarf that complemented her chef's whites. She didn't speak, didn't fidget, just waited with the stillness of someone who'd learned to survive in hostile spaces. Heijin took another bite, then another. The spoon scraped porcelain as he consumed every grain. Finally, he set down the spoon and met her eyes. Never cook for me again. The words fell like stones into still water. Ayatolah's expression didn't change. She simply bowed once. Shallow, controlled, and left. Behind her, Heijin stared at the empty bowl. His hands trembled slightly before he forced them still. In 38 years, nothing had broken through his armor. Until this, he pressed the intercom. Reserve the same table. Next Thursday. Same time. His assistant's voice crackled back, confused. Sir, you just said. Did I stutter? The line went dead. Heijin pushed back from the table, his jaw tight. He hated this feeling. This hunger that had nothing to do with food and everything to do with the woman who just walked out. 3 weeks later, he'd returned 7 times. Each time ordering through intermediaries. Each time finishing every bite. Each time leaving without a word. Adela knew. Of course she knew. But she never acknowledged it, never changed her routine, never gave him the satisfaction of recognition. She simply cooked, presented, and disappeared back into her kitchen at Obsidian Lotus. The restaurant she'd built from nothing in a city that had tried to crush her at every turn. The 8th time he came, she placed a new dish before him. Suya-spiced galbi. Nigerian street food married with Korean short rib. The meat had been marinated in ground peanuts, ginger, garlic, and Korean chili flakes, then grilled over charcoal until the edges charred black. He cut into it. The meat fell apart. The flavors exploded. Smoke, heat, sweetness, earth. His grandmother's warmth and Lego street corners he'd never seen but somehow recognized. Sit down, he said without looking up. Ayatollah remained standing. I have other guests, Mr. Ju. They can wait. With respect, they cannot. Now he looked up. Their eyes locked. She didn't flinch. Most people couldn't hold his gaze for 3 seconds. She held it for 10, 15, 20. Finally, she spoke again. Her voice carrying the faint lilt of Incheon Korean mixed with something older, deeper. If you want to have a conversation, make an appointment. If you want to eat, I will cook. But I am not a decoration for your table. She turned and walked out. Heijin watched her go, something dark and possessive coiling in his chest. He signaled for his assistant, Kwan, who materialized instantly. Find out everything about her. Sir, we already have a file. Everything, Kwan. Her suppliers, her investors, her friends, her enemies, who she talks to at 3 in the morning when she can't sleep. I want to know what keeps her awake. Kwan bowed and left. Heijin finished his meal alone, but for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about territory or money or the 3 families currently positioning their daughters like chess pieces around him. He was thinking about a woman who'd looked at him like he was just another customer. While Heijin ate in private, Seoul's elite circles were buzzing with barely contained anticipation. The annual Convergence Charity Gala was 3 weeks away, and this year carried extra weight. The Cha family, the Min family, and the Han family, 3 of Seoul's most powerful dynasties, had a silent agreement. It was time for Ju Heijin to choose. In a penthouse overlooking Gangnam, Cha Yura studied her reflection. 28 years old, fashion model perfect, educated in Switzerland. She adjusted the strand of pearls at her throat, each one worth more than most people's annual salary. He'll choose me, she said to her reflection. He has to. Her phone buzzed. A group chat labeled Queens. Min Sirin. Saw him at Obsidian Lotus again. 8th time this month. Han Dian. That African chef's restaurant? Why is he slumming? Chayura. Let him have his exotic phase. Men like Heijin always return to their own kind. Min Sirin. Should we be concerned? Chayura typed quickly. No. But we should remind her of her place. I have an idea. The gala was the perfect opportunity. 2 days later, Ayatollah received an embossed invitation delivered by courier. The annual Convergence Charity Gala requested her presence as the exclusive caterer for the event. The fee offered was triple her usual rate. Her sous chef, Kim Miho, whistled when he saw the number. Boss, this could fund our expansion into Busan. Ayatollah studied the invitation, her fingers tracing the gold lettering. 20 years in Korea had taught her to recognize poison wrapped in pretty paper. It's a trap, she said quietly. What? They want me there to humiliate me, to put me in my place in front of everyone who matters. She set down the invitation, which is exactly why I'm going to accept. Miho stared at her. Boss, I didn't build Obsidian Lotus by hiding when things got uncomfortable. She pulled out her phone and began texting. Contact our vendor in Itaewon. I need fabric. Silk. Red. Red? For what? Ayatollah smiled, a rare, dangerous expression. For making an entrance. The 3 weeks before the gala passed in a blur of preparation. Heijin continued his secret visits to Obsidian Lotus, though Ayatollah noticed the intensity of his gaze had shifted. It wasn't just about the food anymore. On his 11th visit, she finally broke protocol. She sat down across from him. He looked up, surprised. Around them, the private room seemed to shrink. Why do you keep coming back? She asked. The food. Don't. Her voice was soft but firm. I'm a good chef, Mr. Ju. Maybe even excellent. But Seoul has 50 excellent chefs. You're not here for the food anymore. Heijin set down his chopsticks. When he spoke, his voice carried an edge of something raw. When I was 7 years old, I went 3 days without eating. I learned to ignore hunger, to make it irrelevant. He paused. Then I tasted your food. And for the first time in 30 years, I felt something I thought I'd killed. What? Want. The word hung between them. Not need. Want. Desire for something beyond survival. Ayatollah's breath caught, but she kept her composure. That sounds like a personal problem, Mr. Ju. It is, and you're going to help me solve it. No, she stood. I'm not a solution to your emotional issues. I'm a chef building a business in a country that has made it clear I don't belong. Who says you don't belong? Everyone, every day, in 1,000 small ways. Her voice remained steady, but something fierce burned beneath. I'm too dark, too foreign, too different. My food is interesting but not authentic. My success is surprising instead of deserved. Heijin rose, moving around the table. He stopped close enough that she could see the scars on his knuckles. Smell the expensive cologne that couldn't quite mask something darker underneath. Then burn them all down, he said quietly. Show them what belonging looks like when you own the room. Before she could respond, he left. But his words echoed long after the door closed. The night of the gala arrived with crystalline winter air and flashbulbs that could blind. The Grand Shilla Hotel ballroom glittered with enough diamonds to fund a small nation. Korea's elite circulated like sharks. Politicians, chaebols, celebrities, old money, new money, and money so old it had forgotten its origins. At the center of it all stood 3 women in white. Cha Yura wore Valentino, a white mermaid gown that cost more than a luxury car. Min Seorin had chosen Givenchy, architectural white that made her look like an ice sculpture. Han Dian commanded attention in custom Dior, white silk that whispered with every movement. They stood together, a united front of power and breeding, waiting for Ju Heijin to arrive. He's late, Seorin murmured. He always makes an entrance, Yura replied. Patience. Dian's eyes scanned the room. Where's the caterer? Probably hiding in the kitchen where she belongs, Yura said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Though I did arrange a special surprise for her. The orchestra began playing. The ballroom doors opened. Ju Heijin entered, black Tom Ford suit, no tie. His hair pushed back, revealing the sharp angles of his face. He moved through the crowd like a predator, people parting instinctively. His security detail flanked him, discreet but deadly. The 3 women in white positioned themselves in his path. He acknowledged them with a nod. Nothing more. Then he stopped, his gaze fixed on something across the room. His expression, usually so controlled, shifted infinitesimally. Everyone turned to look. The ballroom's side entrance opened. Ayatollah Mirabassi walked in. Not in a chef's whites, not carrying catering equipment, not hunched in service posture. She wore red silk that moved like liquid flame. The gown was custom, a fusion of Korean hanbok structure with West African design. The bodice wrapped and tied in traditional Nigerian style, while the skirt fell in the clean lines of modern Korean fashion. Her natural hair was styled in an elaborate updo adorned with gold accessories. Her skin glowed against the red like polished mahogany. She didn't look like a caterer. She looked like a queen. The room fell silent. Even the orchestra stuttered. Ayatollah moved through the space with deliberate grace, her head high, her expression serene. She didn't acknowledge the stares, the dropped jaws, the whispered comments that followed her like a wake. She walked directly to the center of the ballroom and stopped. Chayura recovered first. She stepped forward, her smile sharp. Chef Bassi, how unexpected. We were told you'd be handling the catering. I declined that offer, Ayatollah said clearly. Her voice carried in the silence. I received a separate invitation. As a guest. This was a lie but a calculated one. Murmurs erupted. Min Siren's eyes narrowed. A guest? I don't recall. I sent it. Everyone turned. Heijin had moved closer without anyone noticing. He stood just behind Ayatollah, his presence suddenly filling the entire ballroom. You? Han Dian's voice was ice. Why would you? Because I can. Heijin's tone brooked no argument. Is there a problem? The three women in white exchanged glances. This wasn't the script. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. Yura rallied, her smile returning. Of course not. Though we were under the impression tonight was about more serious matters. The implication hung heavy. Everyone knew what this gala really was. A selection process. Public claiming. Heijin's expression didn't change. It is. He moved past Ayatollah, ascending the small stage where the orchestra had been playing. A microphone was handed to him. The entire ballroom held its breath. Thank you all for coming, Heijin began, his voice carrying effortlessly. As many of you know, there has been speculation about certain alliances, certain expectations. The three women in white positioned themselves prominently, ready for their moment. The Cha, Min, and Han families have been incredibly gracious in their overtures. Their daughters are accomplished, beautiful, well-connected. By any objective measure, an ideal match for someone in my position. Yura's smile widened. Siren stood taller. Dian's eyes gleamed with triumph. However, Heijin continued, and that single word shattered the moment. I have learned that objective measures mean nothing when weighed against hunger. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Not the hunger of poverty, not the hunger of ambition, but the hunger for something real in a world of performance. The hunger for someone who creates instead of consumes. The hunger for a woman who understands that true power isn't inherited, it's built. He stepped down from the stage. The crowd parted. He walked past Chayura, past Min Siren, past Han Dian. He stopped in front of Ayatollah Mirebasi. The only woman worthy of my name, he said, his voice cutting through the stunned silence, is the one who understands my hunger. Then he did something no one had ever seen Ju Heijin do. He smiled and extended his hand. Ayatollah looked at that hand. Scarred, powerful, trembling almost imperceptibly. She looked at his face, seeing past the feared Mafia boss to something raw and uncertain underneath. She looked at the room full of people who'd spent years making her feel small. Then she placed her hand in his. The ballroom exploded. Cameras flashed. People gasped. The orchestra stopped mid-note. The three women in white stood frozen, their faces cycling through shock, rage, and disbelief. Heijin pulled Ayatollah closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. I should have asked first. You definitely should have, she replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Too late now. Apparently. Any regrets? She looked into his eyes, dark, dangerous, and for the first time, vulnerable. Ask me tomorrow. Then, for the benefit of their audience, she added loudly enough for the front rows to hear. Though I expect this means you'll finally make a proper reservation instead of skulking around my restaurant like a thief. Surprised laughter erupted from the crowd. Even Heijin's lips twitched. But the laughter didn't come from everyone. Chayura's face had gone white beneath her makeup. This is ridiculous. She's a... Careful. Heijin's voice cut like a blade. Choose your next words very carefully. Yura's mouth snapped shut, but her eyes promised murder. Min Siren took a different approach, her voice honeyed. Heijin SSI. Surely you're not serious? The difference in background alone is exactly why this matters, Heijin interrupted. I'm done with performances. Done with alliances built on nothing but mutual greed. If Seoul's elite can't handle that, they're welcome to test me. The threat was implicit but clear. In the underworld he controlled, very few would dare. Han Dian, always the most calculating, simply smiled. But it was the smile of a snake deciding when to strike. How modern of you. I'm sure everyone will have opinions. They usually do, Heijin replied. I've stopped caring. He turned to Ayatollah. Would you like to leave? I would love to leave. They walked toward the exit together. The crowd parted like water, whispers following them like rain. Behind them, The three women in white stood in their ruined moment, already calculating their revenge. Because this wasn't over. It had only just begun. The morning after the gala, Ayatollah woke to her phone vibrating like a trapped bee. 53 missed calls. Hundreds of text messages. Her social media had exploded overnight. She scrolled through headlines while making coffee. Mafia boss chooses unknown chef over elite heiresses. Who is Ayatollah Bassi? The woman who caught Seoul's most dangerous bachelor, Cha Min, and Han families humiliated at charity gala. Her restaurant's phone started ringing before she'd finished her first cup. Obsidian Lotus, she answered professionally. Chef Bassi, this is Jung Maiwan from Seoul Daily. We'd like to do a feature. Ayatollah hung up. The phone rang again immediately. This continued for 2 hours until she finally unplugged it. Her phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. Your restaurant. Noon. Don't be late. She stared at the message, then typed back. My restaurant. My schedule. You'll wait if I'm busy. The response came instantly. Fair. At exactly noon, Ju Haejin arrived at Obsidian Lotus with 2 security guards who stationed themselves outside. The lunch service was in full swing, but customers kept glancing over, phones discreetly filming. Ayatollah emerged from the kitchen, still in her chef's whites. Conference room, 2nd floor. She led him to a small private space above the restaurant, her office, her sanctuary. It smelled like coffee and old cookbooks. The walls were covered with recipes in her handwriting, photos of Lagos and Incheon, newspaper clippings from when she first opened. Haejin looked around with genuine interest. This is where you plan. This is where I survive. She closed the door. We need to talk. We do. Last night. I should have asked permission first, he interrupted. I know. It was presumptuous and arrogant and very possibly ruined your life. Ayatollah blinked. She'd expected defensiveness, not immediate acknowledgement. However, he continued, I'm not sorry I did it, only that I did it without warning you first. Why? The question burst out of her. Why me? You could have anyone. Those 3 women, whatever else they are, they're powerful, connected, they understand your world. They understand nothing, Haejin said flatly. They see me as a prize to be won, a dangerous pet to be tamed, a weapon to be wielded for their family's benefit. He stepped closer. You see me as a man who eats too much and doesn't make proper reservations. Despite everything, Ayatollah almost smiled. Almost. You've made my life incredibly complicated, she said instead. I know. I'm already getting calls from investors pulling out. 2 suppliers contacted me this morning saying they can't work with me anymore. Someone left a dead rat on my doorstep with a note that said, Go home. Haejin's expression went dark. Who? I don't know. Could be anyone. Could be your 3 disappointed suitors. Could be random racists who finally have an excuse. She crossed her arms. My point is, you've painted a target on my back. Then let me protect you. No. I didn't build this restaurant so I could hide behind a man. Her voice was firm. I came to Korea 20 years ago with nothing. I learned the language. I worked in kitchens where they wouldn't let me touch the good ingredients because I was foreign. I smiled through 1,000 microaggressions. I saved everyone until I could open this place. She gestured around them. I didn't survive all that to become someone's protected pet. Haejin studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he nodded. Okay. You don't want protection. I respect that. But I can make calls. Pressure suppliers to honor their contracts. Find new investors. That's protection. That's business. He met her eyes. I'm not offering to fight your battles. I'm offering resources. What you do with them is your choice. Ayatollah wanted to refuse on principle. But she wasn't stupid. 3 of Seoul's most powerful families would be coming for her. And pride wouldn't keep her restaurant afloat. Resources, she repeated. Nothing more. Nothing more. And if I decide this, whatever this is too complicated? If I walk away? Haejin's jaw tightened. Then you walk away. I won't chase you. It was probably a lie. Everything about his body language screamed possession, obsession. But it was a lie she needed to hear. Fine, she said. Give me your investor contacts. But I choose who I work with. And I don't want your money, only introductions. Done. They stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken things. Finally, Ayatollah broke the silence. You should go. I have service in 2 hours. One more thing. What? Dinner. Tonight. Not here. Not my place. Neutral ground. Is this a date? Call it a strategic planning session. Now she did smile. Fine. But I choose the restaurant. I wouldn't expect anything less. He left through the back exit to avoid the reporters gathering outside. Ayatollah watched him go, then returned to her kitchen. Miho looked up from prep. Well, we're going to war, Ayatollah said calmly. So let's make sure the food is perfect. That evening, Ayatollah chose a small Korean barbecue restaurant in Dongdaemun. Family-owned, no pretension, excellent food. The kind of place where Haejin's security detail looked conspicuously out of place. She arrived first, claiming a corner table. When Haejin walked in 15 minutes later, several customers recognized him and immediately became very interested in their food. He slid into the seat across from her. Interesting choice. My favorite restaurant in Seoul, Ayatollah said. The grandmother who owns it gave me my first meal when I arrived from Nigeria. I was 17, terrified, couldn't speak Korean. She fed me for free and taught me how to make kimchi. Haejin glanced toward the kitchen where an elderly woman was grilling meat. Does she know? About last night? Probably. But Halmoni doesn't care about politics. Only about whether you finish your food. They ordered samgyeopsal, kimchi jjigae, banchan. The food arrived quickly, steam rising from the grill between them. For several minutes they just ate. It was strangely comfortable, this silence. Neither felt the need to fill it with small talk. Finally, Haejin spoke. When I was 7, my parents died. Car accident. I ended up in an orphanage. He turned the meat on the grill, not meeting her eyes. The place was underfunded, overcrowded. We ate twice a day, usually watered-down rice and whatever vegetables were cheapest. Ayatollah listened, sensing this wasn't a story he told often. I learned to steal food, got good at it, would bring extra back for the younger kids. He paused. One winter I stole from the wrong person, got caught, got beaten so badly I couldn't walk for a week. He touched his ribs unconsciously. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung. Should have died. But you didn't. No. Someone intervened. Crime boss named Song Jin-tae. He saw potential in a kid desperate enough to steal despite the consequences. Haejin's voice went flat. He offered me a choice. Stay in the orphanage and starve, or work for him and eat. That's not a choice. Exactly. So I worked. Started as a runner. Moved up. Got ruthless. By 20, I'd killed 7 men. By 25, I ran my own territory. By 30, Jin-tae retired and handed me his empire. He finally looked at her. I built everything on hunger. Physical hunger. Hunger for power. Hunger for control. And I thought I was satisfied. But you weren't. No. Because I'd eliminated hunger itself. I could have anything I wanted. Which meant nothing satisfied me. He reached for his water. Until I tasted your food. Ayatollah absorbed this. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked why you. This is why. You understand hunger. Not the theoretical kind. The real kind. The kind that shapes you. He leaned forward. Your food carries memory, pain, survival, joy. It's the only thing I've tasted in 15 years that felt true. She was silent for a moment. Then, when I was 17, I left Nigeria because my mother died and there was nothing left for me there. I chose Korea because my mother used to watch K-dramas and said it looked beautiful. She smiled sadly. I arrived and realized how naive I'd been. What happened? Everything and nothing. I got a student visa, enrolled in language school, tried to find work. But everywhere I went, she paused. People would see me and decide who I was before I opened my mouth. African meant poor, meant uneducated, meant I was probably here illegally or looking for a husband. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me strong. She met his eyes. I learned to speak Korean better than some natives. Learned to bow correctly. Learned every rule of etiquette. I became Korean in every way except the one that mattered. I couldn't change my skin. Why stay? Because leaving would mean they won. And I don't lose. Fire flashed in her eyes. So I worked. 16-hour days in restaurant kitchens. Saved everyone. Learned every technique. And when I finally opened Obsidian Lotus, I made it impossible to ignore. Haejin smiled. A real smile, rare and genuine. You succeeded. Maybe. Or maybe I just became a more visible target. She picked up her chopsticks. So now here we are. You've claimed me publicly. Elite society is scandalized. And somewhere, 3 very powerful women are plotting revenge. Are you scared? Terrified? She admitted. But I've been terrified before. It didn't stop me then. It won't stop me now. They finished the meal in comfortable silence. As they were leaving, the grandmother who owned the restaurant stopped Ayatollah. Ayatollah, she said in rapid Korean. This man, is he good to you? Ayatollah glanced at Haejin, who was pretending not to understand. I don't know yet, Halmoni. The old woman studied Heijin with the sharp eyes of someone who'd survived war and poverty. Then she switched to crisp, formal Korean. You hurt this girl. I don't care how powerful you are. I will find you. Heijin bowed deeply. Understood, Halmoni. The old woman nodded, satisfied, and shuffled back to her kitchen. Outside, Ayatollah laughed. A real, unguarded sound. She's serious, you know. She keeps a knife that could gut a pig. I believe it, Heijin said. Then quieter. She cares about you. She's family. Ayatollah's voice softened. The only family I have here. They stood on the street corner, Seoul's neon lights reflecting in puddles from an earlier rain. Car horns blared. People rushed past. But in their small bubble, time seemed suspended. Thank you, Heijin said suddenly. For what? For not running. For giving me a chance to prove I'm more than headlines and rumors. Ayatollah looked at him, really looked. Saw past the expensive suit and dangerous reputation to the 7-year-old boy stealing food to survive. Saw the hunger that still drove him. Saw the possibility of something real beneath the armor. Don't make me regret it, she said softly. I'll try not to. He wanted to kiss her. She could see it in the tension of his body, the way his eyes dropped to her lips. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped back, maintaining the careful distance she'd established. Tomorrow, he said. Same time. I want to show you something. What? A surprise. I don't like surprises. You'll like this one. He left before she could argue, disappearing into a black car that had been waiting discreetly. Ayatollah watched the taillights fade, then called for her own taxi. She didn't notice the photographer across the street, camera clicking rapidly. She didn't notice the luxury sedan parked 2 blocks down, where Cha Yura sat reviewing the photos on a tablet. And she didn't notice the smile that crossed Yura's face. Cold, calculated, and deeply satisfied. The next morning, the photos were everywhere. Intimate dinner. Ju Heijin and mystery chef spotted at modest restaurant. From gala glamour to street food. Is this love or phase? Sources say Obsidian Lotus owner struggling with investor confidence. Ayatollah stared at her laptop screen. The photos were innocent, just 2 people eating dinner. But the accompanying articles were poison. Sources close to the Cha family suggest the relationship is merely a publicity stunt. Financial analysts question the stability of Obsidian Lotus amid ownership's controversial romantic choices. Cultural experts debate whether such a high-profile interracial relationship can survive Korea's traditional society. Her phone rang. Her landlord, Chef Bassi. The man's voice was apologetic but firm. I'm sorry, but I'm receiving pressure to terminate your commercial lease. Pressure from whom? I can't say, but they've made it clear that renewing would be unwise for my other tenants. My lease doesn't expire for 2 years. There are clauses, building safety concerns, reputational issues with other businesses. This is illegal. Prove it. The line went dead. Ayatollah sat very still, her coffee growing cold. Then her business line rang. Obsidian Lotus. Chef Bassi, this is the Korea Health and Safety Administration. We've received complaints about your establishment. We'll need to conduct an immediate inspection. Based on what complaints? I'm not at liberty to say. Please have all your documentation ready. We'll arrive this afternoon. 3 more calls followed. Her main seafood supplier canceling their contract. A food critic who'd previously praised her restaurant now requesting an interview to reassess in light of recent events. Her insurance company suggesting her premiums would need to increase due to elevated risk factors. By noon, Ayatollah had received 17 calls or emails, each one a small cut designed to bleed her business dry. She was still processing when Heijin arrived at exactly the time they'd agreed to meet. He took one look at her face and knew. What happened? She handed him her phone, showing the succession of emails and messages. He read through them, his expression growing darker with each line. This is Yura, he said finally. Her family controls significant real estate holdings. They're applying pressure through your landlord. And the health inspection? Han Dian's father chairs the committee that oversees the administration. He set down the phone. They're coordinating. To destroy me. To make you surrender. He pulled out his own phone. I can make calls. Stop this. No. Ayatollah's voice was steady. You make calls, it proves I need you to fight my battles. That's exactly what they want. To prove I'm not strong enough for this world. Then what do you want to do? Fight back. But my way. She stood, energy returning to her movements. The health inspection, they're expecting to find violations. So we'll give them perfection. Call Miho. I want every surface sanitized. Every temperature log perfect. Every ingredient sourced and documented. And the lease issue? I'll handle that. She pulled out her laptop. I know people. Other business owners who've dealt with similar pressure. There are legal protections if I know where to look. Heijin watched her transform from overwhelmed to strategic. You're remarkable. I'm annoyed, she corrected. There's a difference. Can I help? Yes, whatever surprise you had planned for today. Postpone it. And send me that investor contact list you promised. If I'm going to lose my current location, I need backup plans. He nodded, then hesitated. There's something else. What? The media attention. It's only going to get worse. They'll dig into your past. Look for anything scandalous or embarrassing. Twist innocent things into weapons. Let them look. My past is surviving. There's no scandal in that. Everyone has secrets. Ayatollah met his eyes. Do you? Many. Want to share? Not particularly. Then don't ask me to share mine. She softened slightly. If we're doing this, whatever this is, we need boundaries. My past is mine until I choose to share it. Same for you. Fair. The health inspectors arrived at 3 p.m. sharp. 3 stern-faced officials with clipboards and measuring devices. They spent 4 hours examining every inch of Obsidian Lotus. Ayatollah followed them calmly, providing documentation for every question, answering every query in perfect Korean with technical precision that left them visibly frustrated. Finally, the lead inspector signed off. Everything appears to be in order. Of course it is, Ayatollah said pleasantly. I run a professional establishment. After they left, Miho collapsed against the prep counter. Boss, that was terrifying. That was Tuesday. She surveyed her kitchen. Everything sparkling, every surface perfect. But we're not done. Yura's move failed. She'll try something else. She was right. 2 days later, Min Sirin made her play. Ayatollah received a call from Korea Tech Summit, one of the country's biggest business conferences. They wanted Obsidian Lotus to cater their VIP dinner. The exposure would be massive. The fee substantial. It was too good to be true. It's a trap, Miho said immediately. Obviously. Ayatollah studied the contract they'd sent. But look at the guest list. Every major investor in Seoul. Every food critic who matters. Every influencer who shapes public opinion. Exactly. They're setting you up to fail publicly. Or setting me up to succeed spectacularly. She signed the contract. Prepare the menu. We're going to make this impossible to forget. Heijin found out about the catering contract from his own sources. He showed up at Obsidian Lotus that evening, clearly frustrated. You accepted the Tech Summit contract. I did. Siren's family runs that conference. It's a setup. I know. Then why? Because hiding won't help. Ayatollah emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands. They want me to refuse out of fear, to prove I can't handle the pressure. So I'm going to cater the best damn dinner Seoul has ever seen. And if they sabotage you, then I deal with it. She crossed her arms. I appreciate your concern, truly, but I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. Heijin wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed at him to protect, to control, to eliminate the threat. But he looked at her face, determined, fierce, unafraid, and realized she didn't need protection. She needed support. What do you need? He asked instead. Honest feedback on the menu I'm planning. You have expensive taste and a sophisticated palate. Help me make this perfect. It was a peace offering. A way to include him without making him her savior. He smiled. Show me what you're planning. They spent the next 3 hours in her kitchen, Ayatollah cooking while Heijin tasted and critiqued. It was intimate in a way that had nothing to do with romance. Two people who understood hunger, creating something beautiful together. The guameji, Heijin said, tasting the half-dried Pacific herring she'd prepared. It's too traditional. These tech people want innovation. What if I paired it with Nigerian palm wine reduction and microgreens? He considered. Try it. She did. He tasted. His eyes closed. Perfect. They worked like this, finding balance between tradition and innovation, Korean and Nigerian, familiar and surprising. By midnight, they had a menu that felt revolutionary. This could work, Heijin admitted. It will work. Ayatollah's confidence was unshakable. And if Sirin sabotages the kitchen, tampers with ingredients, I'm bringing my own equipment, my own ingredients, my own team. She met his eyes. I'm not giving her any opportunities. You've thought of everything. I've had to. Heijin moved closer. In the dim kitchen light, the shadows played across both their faces. You're stronger than I expected. You expected weak? I expected normal. You're extraordinary. The air between them crackled. This time, when he leaned forward, she didn't step back. Their lips met, tentative at first, then deeper. His hand cupped her face. Her fingers tangled in his shirt. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. That was Ayatollah started. Inevitable, Heijen finished. Probably a bad idea. Definitely a bad idea. He kissed her again anyway. This time when they separated, Ayatollah smiled, a real smile, unguarded. You should go. I have prep in 5 hours. When do you sleep? When I'm dead. Concerning. But effective. He left reluctantly, and Ayatollah returned to her prep work. But her mind kept drifting to the kiss, the feeling of his hands on her face, the unexpected gentleness in someone so dangerous. She was falling. She knew it, and it terrified her more than any elite conspiracy, because being destroyed professionally was survivable. But being destroyed emotionally, that was a different kind of death entirely. The night of the Korea Tech Summit VIP dinner arrived with unseasonable cold. Ayatollah and her team arrived at the venue 4 hours early, every ingredient pre-prepped, every piece of equipment personally inspected. The kitchen assigned to her was state-of-the-art but unfamiliar. She walked through it twice, checking gas lines, testing burners, examining storage. Everything looks clean, Miho reported. Check again. While her team triple-checked everything, Ayatollah changed into her chef's whites. Crisp, perfect, armored. She pulled her hair back, washed her hands 3 times, and centered herself. This was war. But war she understood. The first guests arrived at 7. Seoul's elite tech crowd, younger than the gala crowd, but equally entitled. Through the service window, Ayatollah could see Min Sirin holding court, her laughter crystalline and performative. Service began. First course. Suya spiced Korean beef tartare with sesame crackers and fermented chili oil. The raw beef was mixed with ground peanuts and Nigerian spices, then served on thin sheets of fried rice paper. The first plates went out. Ayatollah watched through the window as guests tasted. Silence. Then murmurs of appreciation. She allowed herself a small smile. Second course. Deconstructed kimchi jjigae with palm wine braised short rib. The traditional stew reimagined as individual components. Tender meat, fermented vegetables, gochugaru broth served in handmade ceramic bowls. More plates. More positive reactions. In the dining room, Min Sirin's smile was growing strained. This wasn't the plan. Third course. Jollof rice arancini with gochujang aioli. Nigerian jollof rice formed into balls, fried crispy, served with spicy Korean mayo and microgreens. A food critic took a bite and immediately called for her assistant. Find out who this chef is. I want an interview. Sirin's jaw tightened. Time for plan B. She rose from her seat, walking toward the kitchen with her phone out. I'm so sorry, but there's an issue with the next course. I need to speak with Chef Bassi immediately. The kitchen manager started to protest, but Sirin's smile was steel. It's urgent. Health concern. Now. She was allowed in. Ayatollah looked up from plating the fourth course, grilled mackerel with Nigerian chin-chin crumble. Ms. Min, can I help you? Just wanted to check on things personally. Sirin's eyes scanned the kitchen, looking for something, anything to criticize. Making sure everything meets our standards. Everything is perfect. Is it? Sirin moved closer to the prep area. Her hand brushed against a container of finishing salt, and knocked it onto the floor, the expensive fleur de sel scattering across tiles. Oh no, Sirin said, voice dripping false concern. How clumsy of me. That was your finishing salt, wasn't it? What a shame. I don't suppose you have backup. Ayatollah looked at the spilled salt, looked at Sirin's satisfied smirk, looked at her team watching anxiously. Then she smiled. Actually, we do. She pulled out another container from her personal supplies. I brought extras. I always bring extras. Sirin's expression cracked. How fortunate, isn't it? Ayatollah's voice was pleasant, but her eyes were hard. Now if you'll excuse me, Ms. Min, I have guests to feed. Of course. Sirin forced a smile. Though I should mention, one of our guests has a severe shellfish allergy. You are using shellfish in the next course, aren't you? Ayatollah had been. The fifth course featured prawns. We have alternatives prepared, she lied smoothly. I'll adjust. She turned to Miho, speaking rapidly in Yoruba, a language she knew Sirin wouldn't understand. Fifth course is now grilled chicken instead of prawns. Use the suya spice blend. Move. Her team scattered, adapting instantly. Sirin stood there, realizing her sabotage had failed again. Well, I'll let you work. She left, but Ayatollah knew this wasn't over. The fifth course went out, grilled chicken with suya spice instead of prawns. The guests loved it. The sixth and final course was meant to be the showstopper. Fusion John pancakes with Nigerian Accra spices, topped with caviar and served with aged soy reduction. But as Ayatollah began plating, she noticed something wrong. The caviar tin was open. The expensive sturgeon roe inside looked off. She sniffed it. Spoiled. Someone had tampered with it. Left it out of refrigeration long enough to ruin it but not long enough to be obvious until the crucial moment. Ayatollah's team froze. Without the caviar, the dish was incomplete. Boss! Miho's voice was panicked. What do we do? Ayatollah's mind raced. She had minutes, maybe seconds, before guests would expect the final course. The caviar had been the luxury element, the status symbol that would seal her triumph. But status symbols were exactly what she'd been fighting against her entire career. New plan, she said calmly. We go simple, traditional. We show them that food doesn't need expensive garnishes to be extraordinary. She grabbed ingredients, her hands moving with practiced speed. The John pancakes remained, but instead of caviar, she topped them with perfectly soft-boiled quail eggs, crispy fried shallots, and a drizzle of palm oil that had been infused with gochugaru. She tasted it, closed her eyes. It was better than the original. Plate it, she ordered. The final course went out. Beautiful in its simplicity, powerful in its honesty. In the dining room, guests tasted this last offering and fell silent. Then applause began. Slow at first, then building. By the time Ayatollah emerged from the kitchen, the entire room was standing. Min Sirin sat frozen, her face a mask of disbelief. The conference organizer approached Ayatollah. Chef Bassi, that was extraordinary. I'd like to discuss future collaborations. I'm honored, Ayatollah said graciously. Please contact my restaurant directly. As she spoke, she caught Sirin's eye across the room. The message was clear. I won. Later, in the car ride back to Obsidian Lotus, Ayatollah finally allowed herself to process. Her hands were shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. Heijen, I heard it went well. She typed back. It went perfectly. Despite Sirin's best efforts. Tell me everything. Dinner tomorrow? Yes, but somewhere private. I'm tired of performances. My place? She hesitated. Then, your place. It was a line they hadn't crossed yet. The privacy, the intimacy of personal space. But after tonight, Ayatollah was ready to stop keeping him at arm's length. If they were doing this, they were doing it for real. The next evening, Ayatollah arrived at Heijen's penthouse in Gangnam. The building security was intense. Multiple checkpoints, facial recognition, armed guards who communicated through earpieces. Heijen met her at his private elevator, dressed casually in dark jeans and a black sweater. It was the first time she'd seen him not in a suit. Welcome, he said simply. The penthouse was unexpected. She'd imagined cold modern design, expensive but impersonal. Instead, the space was warm, wood floors, comfortable furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. But what caught her attention was the kitchen. It was massive, professional grade, clearly used. You cook, she said, surprised. I try. He looked almost embarrassed. I'm not good, but I enjoy the process. Show me. What? Cook something for me. Anything. Heijen hesitated, then moved to the kitchen. He pulled out ingredients, simple items. Rice, eggs, vegetables. He began making fried rice, his movements careful but unpracticed. Ayatollah watched, seeing how he handled the knife, how he tasted as he went, how he paid attention to heat and timing. He wasn't skilled, but he was sincere. When he plated the fried rice, he looked nervous. It's basic. Not like your food. Stop. She tasted it. The rice was slightly overcooked. The seasoning uneven. But it was honest. It's good. It's not. It is. Because you made it with care. She set down her chopsticks. Food doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. They ate together, the simple meal somehow more intimate than any expensive dinner. Afterward, Heijen led her to the living room. They sat on the couch, soul glowing beneath them. Can I ask you something? Ayatollah said. Anything. Why me? Really. Not the poetic answer about hunger and truth. The real reason. Heijen was quiet for a long moment. Then, because you looked at me like I was just a man, not a crime boss, not a prize, not a weapon, just someone who ate too much and didn't make proper reservations. He smiled at the memory. Do you know how rare that is? How exhausting it is to be constantly performing power. Yes, Ayatollah said softly. I do. Everyone wants something from me. Power, money, protection, status. Even the women who claim to love me, they love what I represent, not who I am. He turned to face her. You didn't want anything. You just wanted me to make a proper reservation. I still want you to make proper reservations. He laughed. A real laugh, unguarded. I know. It's infuriating. Good. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Then Heijen spoke again, his voice lower. There's something you should know about what comes next. Tell me. Yura and Sirin have failed publicly. That leaves Han Dian. And she's the most dangerous of the three. Why? Because she doesn't care about public opinion. She cares about winning. And she's patient. He pulled out his phone, showing Ayatollah a series of photos. My sources say she's been investigating you. Looking for leverage. The photos showed surveillance shots. Ayatollah at the market, Ayatollah walking home, Ayatollah at the restaurant. Someone had been following her for weeks. What is she looking for? Ayatollah asked, keeping her voice steady despite the chill running down her spine. Anything. Past relationships. Financial troubles. Immigration status issues. Something she can use to destroy you without touching you directly. She won't find anything. Everyone has something, Ayatollah. Not me. I've lived clean because I had to. One mistake and I'd have been deported. She met his eyes. I have no hidden debts. No scandalous past. No immigration violations. My papers are perfect because perfect was the only option. What about Nigeria? Before you came here, Ayatollah tensed almost imperceptibly. What about it? If Dian digs there, she'll find nothing relevant. The words came out too quickly, too defensive. Agent studied her. You're hiding something. We all have parts of our past we'd rather not discuss. Ayatollah. I left Nigeria 20 years ago because my mother died and there was nothing left for me there, she said firmly. That's true. What I didn't mention is that she died because we couldn't afford proper medical care. Because we were poor. Because my father left when I was 5 and never came back. Her voice remained steady, but her eyes were bright. I watched my mother die slowly while I was powerless to help. Then I used the money from selling everything we owned to buy a plane ticket to Korea. That's my tragic backstory. Are you satisfied? The words hung between them. Agent reached for her hand. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me strong. It made you hard. Same thing. No. His grip tightened. Strong is surviving. Hard is not letting anyone close enough to hurt you again. Ayatollah pulled her hand away. Are you a therapist now? No. Just someone who recognizes his own armor when he sees it. They stared at each other, both seeing reflections of themselves. Two people who'd survived by building walls so high nothing could reach them. Finally, Ayatollah spoke. If I let you in, really in, you could destroy me. I know. And if I let you in and you leave anyway, it would hurt more than anything my past holds. I know that too. So what do we do? Haejin leaned forward slowly, giving her time to move away. She didn't. We take the risk. Together. He kissed her, and this time there was no hesitation. His hands tangled in her hair, her fingers dug into his shoulders. They came together like matching wounds finally finding each other. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ayatollah whispered, "This is terrifying." Yes. I don't do terrifying. You do it all the time. You just call it something else. She laughed despite herself. Like what? Courage. They stayed like that, wrapped around each other, until the city lights began to dim with approaching dawn. If you've made it this far in the story, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and comment below about which character you're rooting for. Your support helps us create more compelling content like this. The next few weeks passed in a strange calm. Ayatollah's business actually improved. The Tech Summit dinner had generated excellent press. New customers flooded Obsidian Lotus. Critics who'd previously ignored her now fought for reservations. Her relationship with Haejin deepened in quiet ways. He came to the restaurant less conspicuously, often arriving after closing to help her clean while they talked. She started visiting his penthouse regularly, teaching him proper knife techniques and patience with heat. Felt almost normal, which was exactly when Han Dian struck. Ayatollah was reviewing supplier invoices when her phone rang. Unknown number. Yes. Chef Bassi, this is Park Ji-young from Immigration Services. We need to discuss your visa status. Every muscle in Ayatollah's body went rigid. I'm sorry, what? There are some irregularities in your original entry documentation from 20 years ago. We need you to come to our office for an interview. Today. What irregularities? My visa has been renewed successfully for 2 decades. Nevertheless, today, 2 p.m. Don't be late. The line went dead. Ayatollah's hands trembled as she searched her files. Every visa renewal. Every documentation check. Everything had always been perfect because she'd been meticulous. She called her lawyer. I need you. Now. By 1 p.m., she was sitting in her lawyer's office reviewing documents. Everything looks legitimate. The lawyer, Kim Soo-jin, confirmed. I don't see any irregularities. Then why are they calling me in? Pressure from above. Someone wants to rattle you. Can they deport me? Not based on what I see here, but they can make your life difficult. Drag out renewals. Request additional documentation. Force you to prove your status repeatedly. Sujin looked grim. It's a harassment tactic. So what do I do? Go to the interview. Answer honestly. Provide documentation. And don't lose your temper. No matter what they say. The immigration office was deliberately designed to intimidate. Harsh fluorescent lights, hard plastic chairs, clerks behind thick glass partitions. Ayatollah sat in the waiting area, her lawyer beside her, while minutes ticked past. 2 p.m. came and went. They weren't called until 3:30. The interviewing officer was a middle-aged woman with cold eyes. Chef Bassi, thank you for coming. I was told I had no choice. The woman smiled thinly. Let's review your entry documents from 2006. What followed was 2 hours of interrogation masquerading as bureaucracy. Every answer Ayatollah gave was met with skepticism. Every document was scrutinized for flaws that didn't exist. Finally, the officer leaned back. I'm afraid we'll need to conduct a full review of your status. This could take several months. Months? Ayatollah's voice stayed level. For what purpose? To ensure compliance. I've been in compliance for 20 years. Nevertheless, the woman's smile was victorious. You'll be contacted. Outside, Ayatollah wanted to scream. Instead, she thanked her lawyer and called Hajan. Immigration just put me in bureaucratic hell, she said without preamble. I know. I have people at the office. They called me when you arrived. His voice was tight with anger. It's Dian. Her father has connections at immigration services. Can you stop it? I can try, but immigration is federal. My influence there is limited. Ayatollah closed her eyes. So she's found her weapon. Looks like it. What do I do? Fight. Document everything. Build your case. And I'll make some calls. See if I can apply counterpressure. I don't want you fighting my battles. This isn't just your battle anymore. She's coming at you to hurt me. And there it was, the truth Ayatollah had been avoiding. She wasn't just Ayatollah Bassi anymore. Struggling immigrant entrepreneur. She was Jew Hajan's weakness. His vulnerability made flesh. I need to think, she said. Ayatollah. I need space. Please. She hung up before he could respond. That night, alone in her apartment above the restaurant, Ayatollah finally let herself feel the fear she'd been suppressing. 20 years of building a life. 20 years of careful compliance. All of it potentially destroyed because she'd fallen in love with the wrong man. Or the right man at the wrong time. Her phone buzzed with messages from Hajan. She ignored them. But at 2 a.m., there was a knock on her door. She opened it to find Hajan standing there, still in his suit from whatever business he'd been conducting. His face was drawn, exhausted. I know you wanted space, he said. But I couldn't leave things like that. Hajan, let me speak, please. He took a breath. I can make this all go away. One call to Dian's father. One threat. One reminder of what happens to people who cross me. Don't. But it would cost you something. It would prove you need me to survive. And I know you'd hate that. Hate me eventually for making you dependent. He met her eyes. So I'm giving you a choice. I can end this today, or I can step back. End our relationship. Remove the target from your back. Ayatollah stared at him. You're asking me to choose between you and my freedom. I'm asking you to choose what matters most. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. We both know that. She wanted to rage at him, at Dian, at the entire corrupt system. But instead, she asked the question that mattered. What do you want me to choose? I want you to be safe and happy, even if that means without me. Liar. He smiled sadly. Okay, I want you to choose me. Selfishly, desperately, completely. But I know that's not the right answer. Ayatollah was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if there's a third option? What option? We fight, but we fight smart. We document every harassment attempt. Build a legal case. Go public if necessary. She stepped closer to him. I don't need you to save me, but I could use a partner who helps me save myself. Hajan's expression shifted, hope mixed with something deeper. A partner. Equals. Fighting together instead of you fighting for me. And if we lose? Then we lose together. She took his hand. But I didn't survive 20 years in Korea by giving up when things got hard. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. You're sure? Terrified, but sure. They stood like that, two people who'd survived alone learning what it meant to survive together. The next morning, they strategized. Hajan provided the names of lawyers who specialized in immigration harassment cases. Ayatollah contacted every business owner she knew who'd faced similar pressure. Together, they built a coalition. Within a week, they had enough documentation to prove a pattern of targeted harassment. Within 2 weeks, they'd leaked the story to a reporter known for exposing corruption. The article hit like a bomb. Immigration services weaponized against business owner in elite power play. Suddenly, Ayatollah wasn't a convenient target. She was a cause. Other immigrant business owners came forward with their own stories. Civil rights organizations got involved. Media pressure mounted. Han Dian's father was forced to recuse himself from anything involving Ayatollah's case. The immigration review was quietly dropped. But Dian herself wasn't finished. 3 days after the article published, Ayatollah arrived at Obsidian Lotus to find her entire front window smashed. Glass covered the sidewalk. Paint had been thrown across the interior. The message spray painted on the